Remote.
What? Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Friends, today we are going to discuss the Lonapala Sutta, or the lump of salt, from the Anguttara Nikaya, the numerical discourses of the Buddha. This sutta is in the Book of Trees in the Anguttara Nikaya. You may be familiar with this sutta and perhaps heard it discussed, for this sutta is a very popular one. But I hope that it will give you a few more ideas when you listen to it again. This sutta is about the result of karma and how we experience it. The Buddha says, if one were to say, no matter how a person performs a deed, they experience it the same way, then the spiritual life could not be lived and there would be no chance of making a complete end of suffering. The Buddha said this because anyone who would commit both wholesome and unwholesome acts while living in this world, if one's unwholesome acts are greater, one would be reborn in a lowly state and may commit more and more unwholesome actions. So, one would go on and on in samsara and may not get a chance to redeem oneself. But the Buddha continues, if one says, no matter how one performs a deed, they experience the result as it should be experienced, then the spiritual life can be lived and has a chance to end its suffering. Then the Buddha explains how this happens. He compares two kinds of people, that is, a person who has a small self. In Sinhala, it is called Alpeshakya, and a person who has a great self. In Sinhala, it is Maheshakya. Now, small self is given by Bhikkhu Bodhi as Dukkha Vihari in the numerical discourses, and great self as the Appamana Vihari. You know, Vihari means living or being. So, the small self is limited, undeveloped in body, undeveloped in morality, undeveloped in mind, undeveloped in wisdom, and has a mean character, and he dwells in suffering. He is limited because of the limitation of his virtues. His self is the body, and even if his body is large, he has a mean character because of the limitation of the virtues. Undeveloped in body means he has not developed physical endurance or ethics. He just allows the mind to dictate and follows it without questioning or understanding or thinking about consequences. Never train the mind, does not follow any Dhamma, so he has not developed any wisdom. When such a person creates trifling bad karma, it leads him to hell, according to the Buddha. Hell could be the animal or Petha world too. Life in these realms is very long and full of suffering and misery. By not knowing or seeing how to lessen the suffering, they create further suffering. For instance, in the animal world, they live by preying on one another, the stronger killing the weaker for food. Then the Buddha explains how another person, the great self, creates a similar trifling bad karma, but experiences the result in this very life without leaving even a little bit to be experienced in a subsequent life. This is because that one is developed in body, has virtuous behavior, developed in mind, and has wisdom. He is unlimited and has a lofty character. Even if his body is small, his character is so great and virtuous that he is able to expiate the bad karma in this life itself without leaving even a slight trace for any later life. Buddha shows how an unwholesome act can be changed by the cultivation of certain wholesome qualities. In the Brahma Vihara Sutta, that's also in the Anguttara Nikaya, in the section on tense, a meditator has grown great and immeasurable. You know, when someone has done the 4 Brahma Viharas or even one of them, that person can be immeasurable. That is, you know, his heart and mind become so vast and great that such a person is called immeasurable. Through metta and thinks. Now, this person who has developed metta thinks, formerly my mind was limited and uncultivated. Now, he was also an ordinary Putujjana earlier. But now, my mind is boundless and well cultivated. Any limited karma that was done earlier neither remains nor persists there. Now, see, that is what Buddha says when he says unwholesome karma can be changed to wholesome karma if one practices the Dhamma. According to the Abhidhamma, karma is divided into 4 types. The first one is immediately effective. Now, in Pali, it's called Ditta Dhamma Vedaniya Kamma. This is karma that is to be experienced in this present life. If it misses to ripen in this life, it becomes defunct. That is, it is called an ahosi karma. This will not ripen in a later life. Once it's defunct, it will not come back again. The second one is, this is karma that is to be experienced in the next life, immediately after this life. That is called in Pali, Upapajja Vedaniya karma. And if it misses to ripen in that life, it becomes defunct, ahosi. Then the third one is karma that is to be experienced on some subsequent occasion. That means not immediately after this, it can be immediately after this, or it can be in any life after that. So that it is something that will never, go or never be defunct without giving the result. The consequences will come. So that is called Appara Pariya Vedaniya karma. That is, they can ripen at any time after the next life for as long as one continues in samsara. You know that Mahamoggallana had to face a thing like that. Mahamoggallana was the second chief disciple of the Buddha with so much of psychic power, the highest in psychic power in his dispensation. But he had earlier killed his father and mother in a birth long ago, eons ago. But still, he was still reaping the result of that. So in his last birth, he had to undergo the 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 the, the, the result of that by being hit by thieves or robbers or whatever. And it is said that his bones were smashed to bits. Okay, so the ahosi karma is the fourth kind, which becomes ineffective when the right conditions are not present. That is, the Buddha and the Arahants who do not create karma after they attain arahantship only experiences certain karma that they had committed in their previous births, that is the residue that may be left. Right? Now Mahamoggallana also went through the residue that was left, though he was an arahant. So like that, the Buddha and the other arahants too might have slight, now the Buddha always says, my back is aching, I must rest a little, and then, lies down a little and asks one of the other arahants to continue. So things like that. Though once one becomes an arahant, they never create any karma. New karma is not created. The Buddha gives a series of similes to illustrate this point regarding the way one experiences the karma they have committed. The first simile is where the Buddha asks the monks, if someone were to drop a lump of salt into a cup of water, would that salt make the water very salty and undrinkable? The monks agree, says yes. Then the Buddha asks, if the same amount of salt were to be dropped into the river Ganges, would it make the water in the river become salty and undrinkable? The monks say no, Bhante. Then the Buddha draws the comparison between this simile and the karma done by the two kinds of persons, the small self and the great self, so that the monks fully understand the way karma works for human beings. The small self is the one who has not done any good karma in the present life, for he does not know or understand the Dhamma, does not associate with noble people, or has listened to the good Dhamma. So, when he commits a trivial bad karma, when I say he, it means she also, it's like the salt in the cup of water. There is no exonerating the action. But for the great self, there is no such difficulty. He is one who has done much good karma and has a good record of his deeds while living in this world. So, even if he is involved in some trivial bad karma, it would not bring him the same results as for the small self. It will be like the salt put into the Ganges river. The Buddha takes another simile. Actually, there are two similes, I have just put them together to explain this matter further. If someone has stolen money or a sheep from a butcher, the poor man without property and wealth would be imprisoned. But if a rich man with much wealth, or a king or a royal minister were to do a similar act, the owner of the sheep could only go to the rich man and plead with him, "Sir, return my sheep or pay me for it." Today, looking at this simile, we might feel that this situation is unfair. But the Buddha is trying to explain the significance of good karma and the result of bad karma. The man with wealth, property, etc. is the fortunate person who has understood the Dhamma and is a practitioner, whereas the poor man is the one who has never practiced the Dhamma or heard it or listened to it. The Buddha says those beings are few who, when they pass away from this world, are reborn as human beings. These human beings who are with us today, including us, Buddha says there are maybe very few of you who will come back as human beings. What happens to the others? Most human beings are reborn in hell, or in the animal realm, or in the sphere of afflicted spirits. That's also in the Anguttara Nikaya, in other Nikayas too. This is due to three causes, that is, greed, hatred, and delusion. You see, people don't realize that when they talk, sometimes they think they are very innocent, but whatever the speech that comes out sometimes may be full of, anger. Without showing the anger, there is anger inside, or greed, or delusion. So all this comes, every act that we do has a karma behind it very often, right? So desire arises due to thinking or mentally examining things of the past that bring about desire. Something that has happened maybe in this life itself, something in the past that has caused desire, and still that desire is there within, So when you think of that, or it may be something in a past life that you have brought forward, right? So, and desire and lust. Then desire arises. Immediately when you think about it, the desire comes back. These are causes for the arising of karma. There are three other causes for the origination of karma. That is, non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. Now you can see the difference. The first one is the unwholesome. Now this is the wholesome. This karma is wholesome and blameless and results in happiness. This karma leads to the cessation of karma if one avoids the desire for things of the past, also to things existing in the present that can bring forth desire and lust. So you can see when we are, enamored, or we are, so desirous of our things that we have now, when we are attached to them too much, you see, it is one thing to be using things, right? Things are to be used, but to be attached to them is what brings the bad karma. So this is possible, this means that to get rid of, to cease the karma formation. This is possible if one understands and sees the result of desire through wisdom. So when one has practiced meditation and studies the Dhamma and discusses the Dhamma and is very familiar with the Dhamma, then one develops wisdom. And with that wisdom, it is possible to see, okay, I'm now thinking of something with desire. I'm going to get rid of that. Another cause for the cause of karma is careless attention, right? A wrongly directed mind is the cause and condition for committing bad karma, whereas a rightly directed mind will never do bad karma. Other than trivial karma, the Buddha gives 5 heinous crimes that would definitely produce rebirth in hell in the next existence. These are, now I think you know them, but still I will tell you: depriving the life of one's mother, depriving the father of life, one's father, right? Killing an arahant, shedding the blood of the Tathagata. Now, in this connection, I like to tell you, the Devadatta committed this crime of, hurting the Tathagata and shedding blood. But Jivaka, the Buddha's doctor, Jivaka was the royal doctor, the Buddha's doctor. He was a great doctor at that time who used to do operations, this Jivaka also committed the same thing, cutting the Buddha's skin. But it was a great kusala or meritorious deed. The same thing, shedding blood. Devadatta shed blood. He committed a heinous crime, which would have taken, which made him go to hell. But Jivaka also did the same, shedding blood of the Buddha, but that was a kusala, because it was done with great intention of curing the Buddha, healing. So when now I left out one more of the 5 heinous crimes, that is the schism in the Sangha. That is the 5th one. But a stream enterer can never do such crimes. For a stream enterer is a noble person. When considering karma or its result, intention plays an important role. As right view is the first factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, we can see that if one does not have the right intention, one could be having michaditti, which the Buddha points out as a grievous mistake. Because if one has michaditti instead of sammaditti, that is right view, instead of right view, one has wrong view. Thinking that he is doing the correct thing, he does the wrong thing. Then he is making a big mistake. As practitioners, if we take the right view, it will benefit not only ourselves, but also others who associate with us. Thank you. So if you have any questions, please ask.
Thank you. And yes, please, if anybody has any questions, they can type them into the chat now, and I will answer them. There questions.
No question?
No.
So you can ask the question in the evening, right?
Yeah, we'll give them a few minutes, and if there's no questions.
Yeah, we'll see if there are any questions. Otherwise, you can keep the questions for the evening.
No, just
Okay.
We have quite a few people signing in this morning. They're giving their respects and their greetings, Ayya. And so tonight, everyone, if you remember, at 7:30, there'll be mock chat where you can type in your questions related to Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. And I will be here to answer them. Again, that's at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time.
There's one question.
Go ahead. Oh, there is a question. Hold on.
Okay, so Manny is asking, if one has large self, does it mean negative karma will affect him less than one with small self?
Yes, definitely. That is exactly what the Buddha says. Because the one with the greater self is one who has already done good karma, before doing this bad karma. The bad karma he might have done without knowing even, or just because we do a karma without knowing, that doesn't mean that the result won't come to us. Whether we know it or not, the intention is there to do it. So, but for the greater self, he or she has already a big amount of good karma, done earlier, not in the past existence, but in this existence itself, in this life itself. So therefore, that person's, that little karma, that bad karma that he or she has done will be, of course, experienced, but in this life itself. And it won't be a very great, pain or suffering. It might be a little, suffering, but still, it will be much less than for the other person who has no such background, right? So that person, when even the trivial karma would take that person even to hell.
Thank you. This is the last question.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you all.
you.
Thank you all. We'll end with 3 sadhus to honor the Sutta and the teachings from mine.
Sadhu, 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 Namo Buddhaya.
Thank you all, and we'll see you tonight at 7:30. Thank you. Have a good day, evening, afternoon, morning, and we'll see you this evening, our time. Thank you.